Okay, so this is about a shift to the right. So when I was talking about curves to the left, those curves are just on the left because they're a different sort of hemoglobin, or in fact the myoglobin, of course, completely different chemical. When I'm talking about a shift to the right, I mean actually this adult hemoglobin is going to do the opposite of the curves to the left. So the curves to the left, we were saying the hemoglobin has a higher affinity, and what we're talking about is adult hemoglobin actually losing its affinity for oxygen, and therefore the curve actually physically moving, shifting back, when conditions return to normal. So this shift to the right was discovered by a guy called Bohr, and in the manner of scientists everywhere, he then called it the Bohr shift. Now I'm kind of imagining that Mr. Bohr had a load of test tubes of blood and was measuring, I don't know, the oxygen content or something. And really the Bohr shift is a response, which is why it's a shift. So it's a response to respiration. And it's a response to the way that carbon dioxide is carried. So, respiration produces carbon dioxide, and when we do the carriage of carbon dioxide, you will realise that carbon dioxide directly competes with oxygen for hemoglobin. It also forms carbonic acid, which releases hydrogen ions which compete for hemoglobin. And I hesitate to use the word displace, but I'm going to use it anyway. And displace sort of kicks off the oxygen, displaces oxygen from hemoglobin. So the more respiration you're doing, the more carbon dioxide you're doing, and the more hydrogen ions displace oxygen, and that releases more oxygen. So acid, of course, so this could also be a response to a lower pH. So why am I telling you that? Well, if we now go to our curve and have a look, and we increase the carbon dioxide content or lower the pH of blood, this curve moves to the right. So this is a response to increased CO2 or lower pH. So what you might find is that you have a curve, and then you have a curve that is labelled with perhaps a level of carbon dioxide or a lower pH. So this one might be labelled 6.5, and this one might be labelled pH 6. And if there's even more, there will be, the curve will shift over even further. This is the only exciting bit of physiology as far as I can work out. What this means is that every cell gets exactly the oxygen it requires for its respiration needs, which is just amazing. It's the only exciting bit of physiology there is, make the most of it. So, unless you like physiology, of course. Never really been into that kind of thing. Like killing rats. Frogs. So what does that actually mean? Let's just draw a line so that we can actually work out. So if we draw a line where our kind of, respiring tissues might be, so I'm going to say that that's the partial pressure of 6, and I draw a line up, and I draw a line across, and I'll draw a line, I'll just do it for this one I think. So this represents the oxygen release, doesn't it? Between where it's sort of, that's how much is attached to haemoglobin, this is how much is in cells. But if the carbon dioxide level at that same partial pressure of oxygen, we're now releasing more oxygen. We're unloading more oxygen at the same partial pressure. So the cells get more oxygen. Immense. So, a sort of significance of this is that the high CO2 or lower pH, and actually when you think about it, you're sort of pounding away at the gym, it could be an increased temperature. As your muscles warm up, we get a lowers haemoglobin's affinity for oxygen. That just means it's more ready to give it up, and more oxygen is unloaded to tissues, what they're going to use it for respiration. Now obviously you're going to need to do quite a bit of thinking about these curves. Personally, I find the curves to the left far easier to understand and deal with and remember, and then I have to remember that it's going to be the opposite on this shift to the right. So there we go, that's what I know.